When I was a kid, we had a big movie cabinet, and at some point in the 2010s, it got banished to the basement. We started renting everything. I'm Alex, and this is Hammer Strikes. Movies were replaced by Netflix, CDs were replaced by Spotify, games were replaced by Game Pass. Every single piece of digital media, we started renting out. We replaced all of our physical copies of things with subscriptions. And this didn't just hit media. This also hit software, and it hit it really hard. Okay, before the 2010s, I remember you used to be able to download Microsoft Word. You would download it, you would install it, and then you could use it whenever you wanted. At some point in the 2010s, Microsoft 365 came out. You started getting hit with subscription fees, and if you stopped paying, you couldn't use the product anymore. This happened with Adobe Acrobat as well, PDF readers, pretty much any kind of application that you could think of. More and more things started getting pushed into subscription type models. This had a huge impact on the economy, and it had a huge impact on how much people were paying out of their monthly paychecks. Well, it just so happens that this didn't just hit individuals hard, but it also hit companies really hard. Software as a service came into the world, and it solved very real, tangible problems. Okay, think about all of these companies. They have, lots of them have massive amounts of data. They have to store all of that data somewhere. The old way used to be, you used to store all of your data on premises. You used to own your own data centers, your own data servers. You had your own IT team, your own engineering team, and they would work round the clock to make sure that everything was up and running and A-OK. And that was incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. Eventually, we started to shift everything onto data centers, and we used to outsource the management of our data systems and storage to other outfits. We gave up our ownership. We gave up control. Now, don't get me wrong, in the short term, in the 2010s, this really did solve a lot of problems. But as these companies grew in size, as data demands grew more and more, these things started to get more and more expensive. Companies had to pay much more. What used to be a line item became a problem. So enter FinOps. What do we do? How do we solve this problem? Right? How do we reduce the cost of our compute? How do we reduce the cost of our data storage? Because now we're paying massive overhead to all of these software as a service companies. And that's not the only problem, right? The other problem is downtime. If you have a problem at any point within your data pipeline, within your application, now it's a call to your vendor. It's not a call to some internal team. You're not calling up that 32-year-old engineer who's hyped on Red Bull to go in and solve the system and break it. Solve the break. Right now you're calling your vendor. You're being added to some ticket list somewhere, and you have to wait sometimes multiple days, sometimes a week, for your problem to be solved. And if that's a critical need that you have, now you might be losing money, you might be losing productivity. That's a real problem. Okay. the pendulum is starting to swing back. There's been a resurgence in the open source movement, and there's also been a return to taking ownership over your own data systems. Compute has gotten better and better. Serverless technology has gotten better and better, so there's more optionality when it comes to choosing who your vendor is going to be. And open table formats really started hitting the scene. Right, so Apache Iceberg, this is a great example. In 2017, Netflix, they developed Apache Iceberg, which is an open table format. Basically, it can replace your relational database and you can run queries against it. They open sourced it in 2018 and it became fully maturized around 2021. So this was only 5 years ago, okay? Anybody can use this technology now for virtually nothing. It's open source, so you can now essentially build your own database from scratch, store it in an AWS S3 bucket, and basically serve it to your analysts with full enterprise-grade management systems. That's insane. That's insane capability for Starbucks money. Okay? So now that there's more open table, now that we have things like open table formats and serverless compute, we have more open source packages and the ability for people to start building more and more things. The barrier is lower, it's reduced. And then also insert things like ChatGPT that came out in 2022. Well, that's just a sledgehammer, right? There was a wall, there was a barrier, and now people can basically take back control of their data systems if they're willing to build it themselves. As companies take a look more and more at software as a service expenditures, subscription costs, downtime, there has been a resurgence, at least with some of the more fiscally mobile companies, to start building some of their own systems. There has been some return to on-premises data storage and servers as well, particularly when cloud compute costs get exorbitant. Now I'm talking at the scale of, say, a large defense contractor or a bank or a big hospital system, something like that. Most companies are not going to have the expenditure to justify building their own data center and storing everything on premises. But as far as ownership of software, analytics tools, the data itself, nobody wants to call vendors anymore. Data engineers are becoming more valuable. Data scientists are becoming more valuable. And companies hiring competent teams, integrating AI solutions, and optimizing for their own data storage is what's really cutting the bill down. So if there's anything that you take away from this, it's that you need to take your software stack back. I'm Alex. This is Hammer Strikes. Go build something.